Can we trust chatbots to provide accurate information? This is a question that has recently been brought into sharp focus. As we delve into an era where artificial intelligence becomes increasingly prevalent, we're compelled to ask, how reliable are these digital assistants? This question is not just theoretical. It's rooted in a real-life incident involving Air Canada and a grieving passenger named Jake Moffat, a tale of trust, misinformation, and ultimately a quest for justice. This story begins with a simple interaction between a passenger and a chatbot. In November last year, Jake Moffat, a passenger, was dealing with the death of his grandmother. In such a time of grief and crisis, Moffat turned to Air Canada for a flight from Vancouver to Toronto. Before purchasing his ticket, he decided to do a little research. He looked into Air Canada's bereavement fares, a special offering for individuals traveling due to the loss of an immediate family member. Now, enter the virtual assistant, the chatbot, an integral part of Air Canada's website. Moffat queried the chatbot about the bereavement fares. The chatbot, in its programmed wisdom, informed Moffat that if he purchased a regular price ticket, he would have up to 90 days to claim back a bereavement discount. This information seemed like a lifeline to Moffat. He took the chatbot at its word. Trusting in the information relayed to him, he booked a one-way ticket to Toronto, costing him $794.98, most likely to attend the funeral or to be with his family during this difficult time. Later, he secured a flight back to Vancouver. This ticket was even more pricey, costing him $845.38. But he was reassured by the chatbot's promise of a bereavement discount and the confirmation from an Air Canada representative who estimated his round-trip cost to be around $380. However, there was a crucial missing link in this communication chain. The representative failed to clarify that the bereavement discount could not be claimed after the purchase of the ticket. But Moffat, led by the chatbot's information, believed he was well within his rights to claim the discount later. So, armed with his grandmother's death certificate and the confidence instilled by the chatbot's advice, Moffat submitted his claim for a refund, well within the 90-day window. He had no idea at the time that a discrepancy between the chatbot's advice and Air Canada's policy was about to cause a major upheaval. Trusting the chatbot's information, Moffat booked his flights not knowing that a storm was brewing. Armed with his grandmother's death certificate and within the 90-day window, Moffat submitted his claim for a refund. With a sense of resolution, Moffat was confident that he had followed the chatbot's advice to the letter. But as they say, the best-laid plans often go awry. Air Canada's response to Moffat's claim was not the comforting reassurance he had anticipated. Instead, it was a stark refusal. A refusal that not only denied his rightful claim, but also contradicted the information he had received from their own chatbot. Staff at the airline conveyed to him in no uncertain terms that bereavement fare rates cannot be claimed back after purchasing flights. This policy was at odds with the instructions given to Moffat by the chatbot, leaving him not only shocked but also disappointed. The virtual assistant, an automated entity, had misled him. It was not a person behind a keyboard miles away, but a programmed system that was part of Air Canada's website. The contradiction between the chatbot's assurance and the airline's refusal left Moffat in a predicament. He had acted in good faith, following the guidance provided by the airline's own representative. The airline's refusal was a blow to Moffat, who had not only lost his grandmother but now found himself out of pocket due to the misleading information. The denial was not just about the money, but it was also a matter of principle. It was about the trust that had been broken, the expectation that had been shattered. In the face of this refusal, Moffat was left with a choice. He could accept the airline's decision, swallow the bitter pill of injustice, and move on. Or he could challenge the decision, seek redress, and stand up for his rights. Feeling wronged and out of pocket, Moffat decided to take the matter to a tribunal. He chose to fight, not just for himself but for every passenger who had been misled by the chatbot. His decision was not about vengeance, but about justice. Justice for himself and justice for others who might find themselves in a similar situation. In a bid to seek justice, Moffat took Air Canada to a small claims tribunal. This marked the beginning of a landmark battle where man faced off against machine, or more accurately, against the corporation that owned the machine. The tribunal was a showdown, with Moffat asserting that the airline was negligent, that it had misrepresented information, and left him out of pocket. Air Canada, on the other hand, had a different point of view. They argued that they shouldn't be held liable for the chatbot's faulty outputs. It was as if they were washing their hands off the responsibility, as if the chatbot was an independent entity, making decisions and providing information on its own. They didn't provide an explanation for their stance, which left the tribunal, particularly member Christopher Rivers, perplexed. Rivers noted, Air Canada argues it cannot be held liable for information provided by one of its agents, servants, or representatives, including a chatbot. It does not explain why it believes that is the case. It seemed to him that Air Canada was suggesting that the chatbot was a separate legal entity, responsible for its own actions. But Rivers wasn't buying it. He contended, while a chatbot has an interactive component, it is still just a part of Air Canada's website. It should be obvious to Air Canada that it is responsible for all the information on its website. It makes no difference whether the information comes from a static page or a chatbot. Air Canada tried to defend itself by stating that their chatbot had provided a link to a page on their website. This page, they said, clearly explained that refunds for discounted fares cannot be claimed retroactively. According to them, Moffat should have clicked on it. But Rivers didn't agree with this argument either. He questioned, it does not explain why the webpage titled Bereavement Travel was inherently more trustworthy than its chatbot. It also does not explain why customers should have to double-check information found in one part of its website on another part of its website. Rivers brought up a valid point. He argued that Air Canada didn't take reasonable care to ensure its chatbot was accurate, and that customers like Moffat wouldn't have known why information on Air Canada's webpage should be more correct than its chatbot. This tribunal battle was not just about a chatbot error and a refund. It was about trust and responsibility. It was about a corporation being held accountable for the actions of its automated systems. It was about the rights of consumers in the age of artificial intelligence. The tribunal was left to decide who was at fault, the airline or its chatbot. As the tribunal pondered this question, one thing was clear. This was not just about a single passenger's grievance. It was a matter that could set a precedent for how corporations handle customer service in the age of automation and artificial intelligence. In a landmark decision, the tribunal ruled in favor of Moffat. The tribunal's decision was clear and straightforward. A victory not only for Moffat, but for anyone who has ever been misled by a chatbot. The tribunal member Christopher Rivers took a firm stance in his judgment, stating that Air Canada should be held responsible for the information provided by its own chatbot. He wrote, Air Canada argues it cannot be held liable for information provided by one of its agents, servants, or representatives, including a chatbot. It does not explain why it believes that is the case. He continued, in effect, Air Canada suggests the chatbot is a separate legal entity that is responsible for its own actions. While a chatbot has an interactive component, it is still just a part of Air Canada's website. It should be obvious to Air Canada that it is responsible for all the information on its website. It makes no difference whether the information comes from a static page or a chatbot. Air Canada tried to argue that its chatbot provided a link to a page on its website explaining that refunds for discounted fares cannot be claimed retroactively, and Moffat should have clicked on it. But Rivers didn't agree. He pointed out the lack of clarity in the airline's argument, stating, it does not explain why the webpage titled Bereavement Travel was inherently more trustworthy than its chatbot. It also does not explain why customers should have to double-check information found in one part of its website on another part of its website. Rivers was firm in his belief that Air Canada didn't take reasonable care to ensure its chatbot was accurate, and that customers like Moffat wouldn't have known why information on Air Canada's webpage should be more correct than its chatbot. He emphasized that it is the responsibility of Air Canada, and by extension all corporations, to ensure the accuracy and reliability of their chatbots. In his judgment, Rivers made it clear that the onus of responsibility falls on the company, not the customer. The tribunal's decision sends a strong message to corporations about the importance of maintaining accurate and reliable chatbots. In the end, the question of whether we can trust chatbots to provide accurate information remains, serving as a cautionary tale for all. This case serves as a stark reminder that corporations need to be vigilant in ensuring their automated systems are reliable and accurate, as the potential for misinformation can lead to substantial consequences.